Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing SMETA08 in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Playing e4 once again, I got a double white, and he's playing Philidor's Defense. Let's go with d4, one of the main moves. Okay, queen takes or knight takes are playable here. Let's stick with the queen. And he plays knight f6, alright, just knight c3. If he plays knight c6, I'm going to play bishop b5 and try to eliminate that knight. But I think he's going to castle first, so let me just think what sort of setup I want here. I'm going to do something a little funky. I'm going to try to fianchetto this bishop because I found that if they castle short, it's kind of nice to have the bishop on b2. And even knight d5 stuff might be in the air at some point. But for now, I should just back off with the queen. Queen d2. He's going to go rook e8, bishop f8. Maybe queen e3 is a bit better. Nah, I think d2 is a decent square. So he'll probably play rook e8. And if I castle queenside, bishop f8 and hit this pawn on e4. But I think I can defend it with bishop d3, so it should be fine. So we're going long. Actually, bishop f8, maybe bishop c4 is interesting. Because there might be tactics on f7. He's going to pin my knight. But do I really mind that exchange? I don't think so. In fact, I think I should encourage him to take if he wants to. Because that will open the g-file, and I gotta believe that the open g-file will yield white something in the way of an attack. So yeah, I'm going to go rook g1 and maybe knight d5. And specifically, g7 and f6 will be tender squares for black. Knight h5, important to realize that bishop g5 is a threat. Looks like I can parry that with rook g1. So let's do that. Maybe he'll put the bishop on f6. This knight is looking somewhat stranded over here. Don't know that I can exploit that. Okay, knight e5. He's playing actively. But bishop e2 just handles the knight takes f3 threat. Now I'm ready to play f4, which would attack that knight and also open up an attack here. All right, so he's angling for the f4 square pretty clearly. But I do have knight d5. Yeah, knight d5 looks logical. Keeping a knight out of f4. Bishop comes in. He's playing for like a full-on blockade right now. But I can go f4, and this knight is under attack then. f4, knight f6. With possible exchanges, f5. Okay, I'm going to keep going forward. When you're attacking, it's important to keep pushing forward if you can. So c6, so I take h5, he takes d5. No, that's got to be good for me. I mean, for one thing, I could take on g6 very simply, which I think is good. Yeah, I'm going to do that first. If he takes with the h-pawn, I can take on d5, and then I'm setting up rook takes g6 as a threat. So this could be big trouble for black. Now just queen takes d5. So if bishop takes f2, rook takes g6. And already that's just busted for him because rook takes g7 is coming. I think he sees that. Otherwise, he would have probably taken on f2 straight away. He could play rook e6, but that invites f5, attacking the rook and also trying to pry open the g-file. I'm feeling pretty sharp since I've returned from Texas a couple days ago, from that tournament I just played. I often feel that I play my best chess like immediately after I'd played a tough tournament. So just f5. If pawn takes, rook takes g7 is lights out. I could also play bishop takes g7 here, but I don't even think it's necessary to mess around like that. Well, is that really messing around? Because his king is stuck on the g-file essentially then. Rook takes g7 looks devastating, but so does bishop takes g7. Bishop takes g7, bishop g5 check, though. Yeah, I'm just going to play it safe, I think. Though I want to have a follow-up in mind, because of course he's going to play king f8. And this bishop's coming back to f6. I could also just take on f5 right now. But then he has rook f6. Okay, I'm going to take, and then I'm going to take on f5 with the pawn. And that should be killer. Yeah, he just resigned. So if king f8, I was going to play e takes f5. I think queen takes f5 threatening mate could also be good, but he has bishop f6, which cuts the coordination between my bishop on b2 and the rook on g7. So he just threw in the towel. Let's go back and take a look at this 20-move game. Pretty quick one. So Philidor's defense. Some people play bishop c4 on move 3. I've usually played d4, but bishop c4 is a developing move. You can't really criticize that, but I like the fact that d4 immediately opens lines. White has a slight lead in development because I've already put my knight out on f3. So playing d4 and trying to open lines by means of a pawn break makes sense in my mind. The famous game Morphy versus the Duke of Brunswick and the Count of Isouard went bishop g4 here, if you remember that game, the Opera House game. And then Morphy took on e5, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, d takes e5, and bishop c4 threatening mate. And what follows can be found in many spots online and in books and such. Morphy just crushed the team of the Duke and the Count in like 17 or 18 moves, something like that. Maybe I'll do a video on that game because that's the first game that I ever committed to memory in chess, and I'll always remember the moves to that game. So instead, SMETA08 took on d4, which is a more modern way of playing it. Knight d7 is also possible if black wants to reinforce the pawn on e5. I recall a tournament game I played back when I was playing e4 more often where I took on d4, but I didn't get much of an advantage. So just to mix it up, I played queen takes d4 on this occasion. And then knight f6, knight c3. So black seemed like they were trying to avoid knight c6. Had they played knight c6, like right now, for instance, I was planning on playing bishop b5 and pinning that knight. And in the event of bishop d7, just taking. And I would forfeit my bishop pair, but I think it's worth it for the central advantage that white achieves and the quick development as well. And this queen is kind of nice on d4. It's hard for black to chase it away. So now, after bishop e7, I played this b3, bishop b2 idea, which looks odd, but I think is a reasonable way of playing against this line, because that bishop lurking is well positioned when black has castled short. And now this knight d5 idea, which opens the diagonal for the bishop, especially in conjunction with the queen on d4, is kind of nasty if it starts to operate for white, which it did in the game. So knight c6 was played, hitting my queen. I played the queen back to d2. Rook e8. I castled long. And I really dislike this decision, bishop g4. I sort of understand black's concept hereafter. They were trying to blockade the king side and get a hold on the dark squares. But it's a risky strategy, and I think the circumstances are not right for black to pull this off. It looks better just to play something like bishop f8 and attack e4, and then decide what to do with the light square bishop hereafter. I mean, it's possible that that's a problematic piece for black, the light square bishop, but still I don't think they're justified in playing bishop g4 and taking and opening lines for me down the g file. So here, and as the famous saying goes, never interrupt your opponent when they're in the process of making a mistake. So I played h3, encouraging them to take on f3. They could drop the bishop somewhere, like, bishop h5 or bishop e6, but that would be a clear change of heart. And if bishop h5, I have a reason to keep throwing my pawns at him with g4. Let me just add the engine in and start to see what it thinks here. It doesn't hate bishop g4. It doesn't give it as its first move, but that's not like a losing move for black. Yeah, it says bishop h5 should be played. But instead he takes, and now we're starting to get a clear edge for white. Yeah, g takes f3, knight h5. We're not going to fall for the cheapo bishop g5. We play rook g1 guarding. Okay, and here I had a direct crushing blow, queen h6. Didn't see that at all. That's a nice one. Attacking the knight, which is in turn defending g7 and stopping mate. Yeah, and if g6, we get to take on h5 because the pawn on g6 is not really defending the knight when the pawn is pinned. Yeah, note that the knight can't move away because he gets mated on g7. So if queen h6, knight takes f3 is best, but after queen takes h5, let's say knight takes g1, bishop c4, and it looks like this knight is trapped. Also, I'm attacking f7, so white is dominating here, just winning. It's a nice line. Yep, queen h6. You know, I've said this before, but this is like the value I get personally out of going through my games, and which is why reviewing your games, even somewhat casual games like this, is one of the best ways to improve. Because it would be so tempting just to say, well, I won this game in 20 moves, the guy played bad, I just crushed him, on to the next game. But then I wouldn't realize that I actually made mistakes. Like, I didn't see queen h6. Queen h6 is just winning on the spot. That could have saved me a lot of work. So, review your games, guys. It's the best path to improvement. Don't fall into the trap of just playing one game after the other. You're not going to get better that way. You need time for introspection and time to try to build on your games, even your wins. So, bishop e2. I just thought this was sensible to defend the pawn. Also, f4 is a threat, attacking this knight and also the knight on h5. And he played knight g6, which looks correct, trying to blockade further. But now knight d5 is a timely move before he gets to sink a knight into f4. Because let's say I play something, I don't know why I would play king b1, but let's just say I did. I think then he starts to get the black square foothold that he wants. Yeah, the engine says bishop f6. I mean, I think even like knight f4 could be okay. And I'm going to have to work to shake this blockade. Knight d5, on the other hand, helps control f6, and it helps control f4. So I like that move a lot. And then he played bishop h4. Better to play bishop f6 and at least try to challenge me, it seems. And now f4 is coming. I'm ignoring the attack on f2 because I'm hitting the knight on h5. Yeah, and he played c6. I think I was expecting knight f6 here. I thought he would try that move. But f5 or even, yeah, probably f5 actually, looked pretty tempting. And I bet if knight takes e4, I could even contemplate taking. The engine says this is way easier because I'm threatening mate and also the knight. But I wonder if this is also working. Yeah, f takes g6 is also working. Giving up the queen because now I can take one of his pawns and rook takes g7 is coming.
Check.
Like this. Here, rook
Check.
takes. The king is driven out. Or I guess back to f8. Rook dg1, ignoring the knight. Yeah, and all of white's pieces are participating in the attack. I mean, we won't go through more lines, but this is the type of thing when your attack reaches like critical proportions, stuff like this will just work because you have so many pieces in the fray. It's like inertia. It just builds on itself. So instead, black played c6. I took on h5. He took on d5. I took on g6. This seemed like the most clear cut. Probably queen takes d5 is also good right away, but I just liked eliminating that knight. And if he takes with the f pawn, I take on d5
Check.
with check. So instead he took with the h pawn. But now on queen takes d5, it's just bad for black. I mean, he can't defend this position. Not only is he down a pawn, but rook takes g6 is a threat. d6 is also weak, although I'm not really going to go after that pawn. I'm going to play for the attack. So it seems pretty much lost. Yeah, king f8 is the computer's recommendation, trying to get off this diagonal. f5, the attack continues. White's king is perfectly safe. We're still up that pawn. Black is not long for this world, as long as I play sensible moves. So he played rook e6, I played f5. Yeah, he took. Now this is, even though this was the last move of the game, this is one thing I also want to try to work on. I have a tendency in positions where I'm much better, if not winning. I fuss over like what the best way to end the game is. And sometimes I take too much time as a result. So here, I wonder how much time I spent on this move. So I have 255. Check. Yeah, I spent almost a minute before deciding to play the pretty natural rook takes g7. Because I was just hemming and hawing and wondering if bishop takes g7 was better. And in reality, both of the moves are just strong. Bishop takes g7 tempted me because now I'm threatening stuff like bishop f6 with the discovered attack on the queen.
Check.
But I rejected it because of bishop g5. And I had a feeling this was also pretty good still. But probably I shouldn't spend 1/3 of my time in deciding between two equally good moves. I should just play one. And, I mean, rook takes g7 cannot be wrong. So
Check.
probably I should just go for it immediately. Yeah, and black resigned. After king f8, I didn't see like a direct win, but I also saw I could just play something like this, and the rook's under attack, and also if the rook moves, queen takes f7 is a threat. So black's getting killed here. All right, so a pretty clean game, aside from missing queen h6 right here, and maybe spending too much time on the final move. Otherwise, I think we played well, but I think black inflicted a lot of damage on their own position with this bishop g4, bishop takes f3 idea that didn't pan out the way they would have liked, because they never got the blockade going on the king side. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Talk to you guys later. Bye.